It is November 20th, 2016. I'm Alex Ansary, and this is going to be the first official, quote-unquote, Guardians of the Earth podcast. The reason I am coining this, the Guardians of the Earth podcast, is because I feel a need to not only mark and define with words, hashtag free media, my exodus from the quote-unquote alternative media, which has been co-opted. I see a void also with regards to the overt spiritual quest. I see how the mainstream and so-called alternative movement, new age information has co-opted many people spiritually. And I see a need, see a thirst, see a yearning for accurate and truthful knowledge about, for example, what the Archons are doing. More importantly, how do we protect ourselves? Whether people call them Archons or demons, how do people have faith in something greater without worshiping in a traditional religion? And at the same time, looking at the events that are taking place, having an understanding, not a BS belief system, but a deeper understanding that comes from internal gnosis, that comes from the experience, that comes from the experience of being the wanderer on the trail, on the path, on the journey, synchronicity of life, literally through personal life experience, coming to certain realizations. It is my life experience that has brought me certain realizations. I have been walking up to this greater reality, as some of you have noticed in some of my podcasts, towards an even greater understanding of what I'm doing and how I pick this body and how some of our decisions are made on a soul level and how I recognize the path of the soul. I recognize the reality of past lives. I see distortion in spiritual communities regarding past lives, regarding karma, regarding the dark ETs, the positive ETs. I see a co-opting, and I see it's like the Guardians of the Earth. This is something that a soul group represents that has literally fallen down into the earth, and it's a movement from the ground up, a ground crew movement, and it's where the real ascension is taking place. Whether those people see themselves as psychics or not, it's not really about that. Many people that label themselves certain things are not what they are. And there are other people that aren't labeling themselves certain things. They aren't labeling themselves necessarily Gnostic or this, that, and the other, but in some way, shape, or form, they're living something without the label. And that's what's important, to understand the spirit of something, the essence of something. You know, you can watch Mr. Bean and be someone that does not speak English, because it's a show that has rich comedy based on body language. I saw a grandmother, my father's mother, and while I've spent very little time with that side of the family, remember, there's the whole family getting together and watching Mr. Bean, during the brief years I lived with my father. And I thought that was a very warm feeling, where people of different backgrounds are together in different languages watching something that is not based on the English language. And so language often define something down to a box-like level, and it could be co-opted once things, get solidified and they're a group. A lot of spiritual communities have been co-opted, and I would say especially when it comes to where we put our energy. I believe that, especially during solar cycles, I believe I'm introducing a new idea on top of it, that we can reharness and redirect this energy. Instead of it being all, unconscious and going in different directions, and men going to war and other unfortunate things that happen during solar cycles. I've talked about social ills within our society. It's not blaming the sun, it's an excess of energy, and it magnifies everything that's already there. So in response, we counter. This is like Aikido of the mind. And we use that energy in a positive. The Guardians of the Earth, describe it as a movement. We're talking about people that have a greater understanding of energy. And I have seen a misuse of the power of thought in the New Age community for far too long. And are there some people that know better? Probably. A lot of people probably don't think about it because they're not called to, because they're under some sort of a spell, because of the entities that they're corded up with. A lot of people on this planet have confused material wealth with spiritual growth. they fail to see how the gods of this world, if you will, and I don't mean the true gods, and I say that sarcastically. So the authorities of this world, the gatekeepers in this soul prison, those working for the prison warden consciousness, we can see how they reward those that serve them. We can see how they punish those that go against them. It doesn't mean that they have all power by punishing those that go against them. It means that that is part of the journey of the person that's going against them. They're going to have forces go against them to a certain degree. They're also going to have forces working behind the scenes that are helping them. Don't agree with a lot of things that he says or really like him as a person. But Jack Blood said a very powerful quote: "Be bold, and mighty forces will come to your aid." And I will take it further and say, be bold and truthful, or be bold with the truth, or be bold with the sword of truth, and mighty forces will come to your aid. And so, the Guardians of the Earth, a soul splinter group, you know, the New Age movement, they took the concept of this and they perverted it with 144,000, which created us versus them. Ooh, am I one of the 144,000? And then, of course, you also see the Bible mention 144,000. We have people that took an exodus from mainstream Christianity in the New Age movement. And really, there were hallmarks of aspects of Christianity and certain things that were obviously incorporated over. We see both the New Age rapture and the spaceships and the ascension idea. And Alfred's role in that, as he's calling 2025 as a period where a portal is going to open. It's all going to be great. Listen, the real guardians of the earth are going to be a little bit more inquisitive regarding all conversations, regarding doorway openings, portals, and whether or not the beings that certain people are talking to are actually coming from the light. You know, there is a war on intuition that you're not going to be able to legislate your way out of on this one. But I see through this shift of energies and the opening of these portals in the last decade, I've seen shifts in intuition from the positive, not necessarily to the negative. And I can also easily see how just the idea of just opening up portals can open up certain things that other entities can't come through. If all it's really about is just opening up a portal and assuming that it's all good. Or a Stargate. I also see how there are none that associate with indigo children or stargates, or star children rather, crystal children, that spend a lot of time talking about what's really going on geopolitically. The accurate warnings and discussing the great negativity that it brings the planet and the mother spirit, Sophia, to use a Gnostic term. It's interesting how a lot of people have steered it to Gaia. So I'm not going to mirror Gaia because the co-opting that I've seen in the environmental movement and the co-opting that I've seen on the left, I don't know that I will be using Gaia. Feel free to leave your comment down below, but for now we will use Sophia, or just the Earth Spirit Mother. And so when you have a massive death thing going on and you have depleted uranium that's being spread in all these countries, but not just Afghanistan and Iraq, you can look at Lebanon, Israel was spraying phosphorus there, you know, types of weapons that melt the skin on the women running with carrying their babies and their children, you know, as their men fight for their lives and are often killed and imprisoned, called terrorists for resisting. So when you have a genocide, which I believe that we do, and you have poisons that are being bombed on the planet where those poisons circulate, you have way too many people that actually believe they're on the spiritual path and that everything's being cleaned up, that I am identifying to be under some sort of form of hypnosis. It seems that I'm one of the few that's seen this, but it's so serious that I'm going to launch this Guardians of the Earth podcast sermon series. There aren't enough people, by the way, in churches. They're calling out the Satanism in our own government and what's happened to today's men and women. And there are many people that have heard what I've said over the years. They said, well, you sound a lot like Jesus. Why don't you do scripture? Why don't you just get on board this? And I don't see a need to get on board anything. I don't see it being really unique to me that, oh, it just so happens to be that I'm speaking of something that was also spoken of thousands of years ago. Yeah, because it's in the knowing. It's not mine. It's just, we're just tapping into, and I'm not the only one. You know, when you start seeing parallels between the Jesus and Buddha and this guy and the other, and even Ansari, the Sufi mystic, my ancestor from the 11th century, and then I see parallels between my life and his. You know, both of us leaving mainstream society at the age of 36. This is too weird. What more is there to learn about the shared soul or the splinter soul concept, or the reoccurring soul, or the collective souls or soul group family in a more accurate sense? And so some of this language you've heard. I even saw the Ashtar, oh, they're talking about solar cycles now. The Galactic Federation of Light, or whoever writes that material, will cite the solar cycles. They'll talk about geopolitics, but they're propping up. They're propping up by calling them walk into the light, Vladimir Putin and Trump, and this new world order that's coming. And there isn't this warning that I'm seeing from the other spiritual communities regarding the evil behind this. Guardians of the Earth have an investment in helping souls escape the soul prison. But there's certain ways to do that. And there are certain ways that you end up stuck here. They show the species in plain sight what they're doing. Because of some, I suspect, I'm speculating, but it's been coming to me strong, you know, because some sort of a belief that they have less of a karmic, you know, for those that are doing this, that are doing the evil. Or maybe the humans that are serving it, you know, putting out the media themselves, that are being controlled by the archons or the entities. By putting out in plain sight that their karma changes. Well, at least you warned them. You know, it's not like you didn't warn them. At least you warned them. So I've seen people for years say that they do this for a reason. They put certain things in plain sight. Where certain people will show you subtly, Alex Jones will do this, that he is corrupted. Instead of, you know, really pretending that he's a really good guy, you know, he'll show you deliberately, or he'll be commanded to, you know, that he has certain tendencies. That's my speculation when you're done with the, you know, the gun show incident in Austin, or you know, God raped you, white woman. He's coming out of the closet in plain sight. At least you're being warned. It's not like he fully deceived you, like he was a really good guy. He kind of showed that he was a nutter. Therefore, by putting it in plain sight, because we have free will, even though some things are destiny, because I believe in combinations. Some things are, and I'm finding that a lot of my ideas are Gnostic in nature, but I'm not going to nail it down to that. But it's the closest thing. But then again, you'll see mainstream Gnostics that don't even get close to really questioning what's going on in our world, or going, you know, how is this really alive? How are we identifying the matrix in our world today, and the archons in our world and government and in authorities today? So, you know, I've heard plenty of Gnostic lectures to where it sounds like just some boring discussion on NPR. Like, you know, boom, 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 boom. Now let's talk in a monotone voice about theologian studies. And I think that there's also damage that's been done within the Archon Research community. I've identified a few others, not just John Lash, that have combined white supremacy with Archon Research, that are discussing the main evidence of the Archons being the mixed races on the earth right now, that being the work of the Archons. And they're actually using Old Testament non-Gnostic scripture to back up what they're saying. But they're hijacking the term Archon because now there's interest in learning what the Archons are doing. So the Archons are deceiving those that are speaking of the Archons by steering the conversation. So look at what they did with Alex Jones, by Alex Jones steering the conversation about 9/11, building up his movement, and really associating himself with alternative media that other people have come under the wing of and are associated with. Alex Jones, Talking Points, New World Order, conspiracy theory in general, with Alex Jones and Jesse Ventura, and many other selections. And others that are genuine, that have made their mistake of coming under the wing of Infowars, or the Infowars Association, without realizing the compromise that comes from an association, or even an addiction, you can say, to that attention, to the sales that come into one's website after they go on Infowars.com, or even some of the other shows like Coast to Coast, even though Coast to Coast has actually put out some decent material. We can also see co-opting there with George Norrie going to bat for Donald Trump and having quite a few of lean up to the election. So you're able to see distortion in both the New Age community and the research community, and the libertarian movement, the liberty movement, also known as the freedom movement. So for a lot of the the black and white freedom-based issues, go under the flag of free media, but this goes under there as well. But I feel that the role of the truth speaker isn't one designated for someone ordained in a church. We all bear that responsibility. So speaking about the Guardians of the Earth concept, that is me, that is you, that is all of us. There are certain things that I may say that sound new agey, and I realize it's because of the co-opting of certain ideas that were real the entire time. And it's the same thing with liberty movement ideas and free. They co-opt ideas and they invert the truth. So certain things that you hear in spiritual communities, soul group, family, ascension, solar cycles, epochs, and other things, even things with regards to demons and angels, or archons, and some people call them elementals or aeons. There's truth and there's disinformation. And if we're able to see, for example, as we've learned the last few years, if we know one thing is a lie, we can kind of see the opposite. What is the opposite of putting fluoride in the water? Well, the opposite is good water, not only no fluoridated water, but healthy water, maybe water that's exposed to sunlight, that has had its structure, its molecular structure realigned, from where water normally is when it's sitting in darkness and there's lead pipes transporting. It's not just about the fluoride, it's about the trauma of the transport and the environment and water absorbing emotions as it goes from one area to another. So I just described to you the opposite in a contrast. Okay, so we look at the links between the fake conspiracy news and the New Age movement. The bakers are going to be arrested. Donald Trump, Putin are walk-ins for the Galactic Federation of Light. Obama also walk-in for the Galactic Federation of Light. ETs are here to help. So it's like almost in all of those categories, but not all. You got to understand, not all. Because some ideas they co-opt. Like the idea of ascension, that is real. The individual shift and ascending beyond things that keep us bound this matrix, that's real. But they take that and they co-opt it. And they merge that with a bunch of falsehoods. So they bring people in that are actually seeking spiritual evolution, but they keep them in external saviorship theology. Instead of people actually realizing when there's a real threat or seeing the role Putin has, oh no, Putin's bringing balance. Putin's not outside of the system. The New World Order is already set up. A lot of nations kept their mouth shut about 9/11. 9/11 was not just an inside job. Now we know Alex Jones really was pushing the 9/11 stuff in a certain direction, just pointing at Cheney and just pointing at others, because it was really a global job. They've all been involved in pillaging in the Middle East. So we really need a free media to start educating people on this. But I would also advocate, again, this concept. You are here to help in the protecting of the earth itself. And that's what comes to me before guardian of the people. The people have a role to play to protect the earth. They've co-opted this too in the environmental movement. And so they take real things that are there. People need to really look at this even deeper and not go schizophrenic with it to where you don't go out for days, but look at certain narratives that are hijacked in the mainstream media to debunk the concept, but also areas to where they redirect. So we see the redirect with the environmental movement. Hey, let's have a global tax then to fight global warming. Let's not look at actually the solar cycles and what's happening with climate change. Let's have more Archon, more authority, more rulership, New World Order to fight global climate change. Let's not look at what it actually means spiritually to protect the earth. Sure, it's good to not litter. If you think it's just about picking up litter, I mean, that's literally at a monkey level of protecting the earth. Beings that have actually been here and have been stuck here on the planet for too long, we don't care anymore. If you think we're a weirdo because we talked about the Archons, we're tired of being in the Archon world, and this isn't our first ride, and we want the ride to stop. You ever go on a ride at the fair and you had some hot dogs and some Cheetos and some Pepsi, and then after you spent the $9 on those items and you take your little girlfriend and say, don't stop believing, and you're going round and around that ride? It can feel really like, whoa, I really gotta like not eat so much of this crap if I'm gonna be on this ride. I gotta go on an empty stomach or go on a ride that's shorter. Causal factors. Causal factors. Tell you what, the equivalent of eating a bunch of Cheetos and junk food, in the real world, create a bunch of negative karma, harming a bunch of people while you're here. It's just gonna make the ride more complicated. It's gonna make it seem longer than it is. We're on the ride for a certain amount of time, and I'm not going to even try to, plagiarize Mr. Ike or Hicks. Ike repeating the quote from Hicks. But it's a powerful quote about the ride, but the idea of it being a ride or a game or a simulation is very real. How long we stay in this, it is up to us. It is not up to the Archons, and it is not being decided by any galactic federation of light. There are no benevolent beings above us, if you will, although there may be like a court within heaven or something to that effect regarding the ultimate real supreme being. We've made our bed. We're sleeping in it. We really should study the physical world with a microscope from another perspective, even closer though, to understand what is happening on a larger world in the invisible realms. Okay. So, you study what is being done in a scientific lab with a petri dish. You study what human beings are doing with cloning. You study how human beings use propaganda to convince other human beings to hurt other human beings. And then you step back like a camera and you go zoom out, and take a look at what is steering that. And if you keep zooming out, you're going to see things that are steering, and literally it's looking through a hollow mirrors until you get to the hole. And you see that the Supreme Creator has allowed the Archons to operate on the planet. It is not an accident. They do not have all power in this simulated video game. They are allowed to do certain things, and we're allowed to do certain things. And in some ways, we're more powerful than them when we wake up to it. They're playing their role as AI in the simulation to convince us to stay in a retarded state of consciousness. Hence, we see also an infiltration of the alternative thought communities, the New Age community, and the conspiracy trash news. Again, that's why you can see a member of today's New Age community maybe listen to an Alex Jones clip, or see Donald Trump in another light after all. Oh, Hillary and the crime family and the pedophiles. Yes, but you don't see too many people upset about pedophilia in the Middle East. And so I will say that I've always felt that there are karmic consequences that come from maintaining silence. And there is a misunderstanding of how this works. There are people that claim to be experts at this. Mark Passio has almost put out, like, literally scripture, this is how it is, and that's the end of it, and don't even question me, but this is how it is. And I do believe that I heard him suggest, and it may be true, let's take a closer look at this, that by putting things in plain sight, or by convincing other people to carry out the acts they believe, falsely so I would say, but there are beliefs probably that they are holding, those that are working with the dark occult, that they're not as responsible because they're having others do their work for them. And I would say that they are very misled. Anyone's very misled, first of all, if they're serving the dark system to begin with. They've been misled into some way of thinking, belief system, or philosophy that certain magical actions or deeds can thus prevent natural law. from coming down on them. And I've seen other ways in which people mindfuck karma. And it's almost like they're playing an actual game with karma, or looking at it as a game of Go or math, instead of the essence of what this is really about. It's not really about the karma. It's about you evolving. Karma, or that which we call that, which some people want to argue and have a breakdown and say doesn't exist because they have an agenda to hold up a belief system that we're not responsible for our actions. But again, like with all words, see beyond the word and see it simply as causal factors and energy returning to that person. So we're living out the end result of what we've allowed collectively, and there are certain things that we've done individually as souls that have bound us to this collective physical reality matrix to begin with, where there happens to be an ongoing dark grid. An ongoing dark grid with archons masquerading as the counterfeit spiritual salvation. Yeah, let's just start opening up portals. Let's talk about a DNA upgrade. Let's not ask questions about how, well, this group's really been masquerading themselves as like white people like with blonde hair and blue eyes. And then when we actually look at the physical world, we see literally Nazi movements. We see the rise of Hitler. We see the propaganda that rose, that helped Hitler rise to the place of power that he is today. We see how Facebook, this Archon tool, and the fake news inverting reality has terrified some people so much of an Islamic invasion that they will not now in a million years ever talk about a dead Middle Eastern innocent human being, because they've all been demonized a certain way. We see what the propaganda has done to the technology, and we see where it's going, because it's not even close to where it's going to go. I'm concerned on this planet, spiritually as a guardian of the earth, that a genocide's coming of specific earth bloodlines. And I see the Ashtar command movement. I see all those that have courted with the Galactic Federation of Light as humans that by design have no feelings in response to this, because the Great White Brotherhood is putting out some message that they're ascending on their own, or that their karma dictated this. And I will say now, with compassion for those souls that falsely think that they're ascending, that they are in reality being bound to this matrix by going into that shutdown mode energetically. And they should be questioning why they're depressed. They should be questioning why they're chain smoking despite the supposed ascension that they've been involved in for years. Some people call it ascension mechanics. They should be questioning why their life is miserable and make the connection between their miserable mood and their so-called spiritual beliefs, or the entities or archetypes that they've courted with. Because the external saviorship theology has destroyed families, has destroyed marriages, has destroyed many communities, many people coming together to have a intentional community. Those that have actually come under communities that are compromised, where it's really all about like the supposed goddess chick who's really the narcissist, or the dude. And we see various versions of this, where people that organize intentional communities are actually energy vampires. We see James Gillen as well, and the real James Gillen, as opposed to the enlightened one, as heard on Coast to Coast AM for those that are in on the know. So we see the contamination of this Archon energy with dudes and goddesses that really have their own interest in absorbing people's energy and getting off on that. We also have to take a closer look at what the deeper motivations are behind some of these people that become energy addicts, and understand that they themselves are so infected and so misled themselves. All they are is a point woman or a point man for the Archon entities that are harvesting that energy that they are pulling from those human beings. And now with technology, you can have also the false prophets and others convince people to be in a certain frequency or state of fear or terror and anger. Inner Alex Jones, fear of the Muslims, now kill them all, going from educating people to now co-opting millions of people. Alex Jones is a very valuable tool to the Archons because of the energy construct that he's creating on the planet. Vladimir Putin is set to be a massive deceiver on the planet. And so you're seeing the spiritual communities infiltrated, as well as the minds of many women, even if they're not spiritual communities, to see the man without the shirt, who can knock out Obama with several blows. to not actually be horrified at the history of Russia, at the fact that German women were gang raped for weeks during the Nuremberg trial period when the Soviet Union intervened in Nazi Germany. So any woman truly tapped into her feminine who's on the ascension path, she's not going to have like, oh my God, I'm going into meltdown mode. I cannot handle this. I cannot. No, you can handle this. Because if you actually clear yourself of those archonic beings that are attacking your aura and attacking your consciousness and yanking at the cord that they have attached to you, if you truly remove them, you're going to be able to handle this. And I think that that is the power of the mind that I do have in this incarnation. I remember actually being insulted by some former roommates saying, Alex, you look at stuff and you talk about stuff that is like toxic to me. And it's like you can look at things regarding the global conspiracy while actually being spiritually grounded. And I always felt that that's who I was and the role that I was meant to play before my very first episode. But I see others that claim to be that are anything but that. And I keep coming down to it. That are peddling some of the fake conspiracy trash and or promoting others that are promoting distortion, or they're saying nothing and then they're still trapped into external saviorship theology and the sharing of fake channeled messages or repeating fake channeled messages from others that they have faith in. And we can see really this inversion of truth. And what it's done to me is because I was exposed first. And I really have awoken to why this had to happen this morning. Instead of being a victim, I was meant to see that co-opting of spirituality. And within those close to me in the 1980s. And how it was an inversion and an opposite. And actually can lead people to interactions with archons or abductions or being put on the radar when people go to some of these big gatherings that are really organized by people with another agenda. The gathering of the light workers, of the star children. It's the Ascension Convention. It's time to get you all in one place for a reason. The question is, why is that? Why the gatherings? And then you see where the gatherings go and the fake predictions. And you're like, well, there was a force that was drawing people in this direction and another. And because there's no discernment, anything that they believe is coming through a message of the psychic realm has been promoted and believed to be of the good or the true light. And again, what I'm suggesting is these portals that have been opening in 1987 and 2012 are bringing in archons. It's not just one big positive trajectory forward. Portals are opening and counterfeit ascended masters are walking through that are really archons, but they come across as something other than, a reptilian or a something. They're coming in the form of things that are sexy, attractive, intelligent, but happen to have some codependent tendencies. So we see Ashtar Command, we see the physical depiction, just like we have a white Jesus who's not Middle Eastern, like older descriptions of the Semitic Jesus. We see the white Jesus, we see the white God, we see the great white brotherhood, we see the positive description of aliens, a positive relationship even with alien abductions. The karmic connection, the needing of the tissue, they are us from the future, and all of this coming from the mainstream New Age channeled messages. And again, nothing regarding a coming Third World War that'll be staged. No place in the spiritual communities for negative information or warnings about what Sauron, what the jinn, what the demons are doing. I've been on the spiritual path for many, many years, and I have answered a call. And what I've specifically done is I've warned women, and I've told them they're in a day and age of spiritual soul entrapment. And so there's certain ways in which they've been entrapping people, especially since 9/11, with regards to turning people into like apathetic, non-feeling people that are really only concerned with what they're going to get, their latest update on their smartphone, and how they're playing people. And I've always spiritually seen, and there's so many supposed New Age spiritual people that think that they're ascending, that are actually very much bound to the physical world as they stare deeper and deeper into their smartphone, into their iPhone. And so, because I think that they deserve another spiritual understanding, a perspective, they deserve to understand that they have free will, And some of that programming is actually binding them to this world. And with that technology, with this hatred that's being built up artificially of the third world, of immigrants, and this worship, you can say, of demigods in our society that are telegraphing at a coming genocide, you're dealing with a co-opting of souls to where people can be led to evil, to where the evil that they dish on others or allow to happen on others actually ends up happening to them. And being that I see a future America being something that is occupied by foreign forces, where there's headhunters, in a reality where women are sold again in the oldest occupation, which is not prostitution but human trafficking, I see the dark side coming through these world deceivers that are taking us to that dark age, not the new age, but this dark age. This illusion that these cell phones are providing protection with, one day that'll be used to find people. You should at least know this from me, that one day these phones will be used to find people. And there's something that is going to be experienced in the next 100 years by the people of the earth and those people that continue to return to the earth. And I will not promise you a golden age. In fact, I'm warning you of World War III in the 2020s. I also accurately predicted and why Donald Trump was the selection. And we've been on track. We are on the exact same track that I was perceiving we would be on when I gave my solar flare and human trends presentation at Mark Passio's lecture in 2012. And you'll notice 20 minutes in, I talk about the cycles of the sun and my projection for the next solar cycle. And I talked about manufactured civil unrest prior to World War III. And I talked about the 2020s. And I think that there is a connection between the sun, the next solar cycle being very great, and massive spiritual growth. I also see a connection between massive spiritual growth, prayer to God, connection with the true creator, during times in which we really want the creator to intervene in our world. And sometimes souls find themselves in situations that they're not actually calling out to the creator en masse to intervene on the planet until there's actually a crisis, to where they literally are saying, "Dear God, please help us." Not Ashtar, not the Jinn, not the Archons, not Michael, not any of them. Dear God, dear Supreme Creator, please help all of us. Please help us. And in some cases, the prayers will be answered. In other cases, people are only saying, "God, please help me," because, it's like you're almost, about to crash, and you put up your hands, and you're a vehicle, and you go, "Oh God, oh God." And you'll notice a lot of people, they will instinctually say, "Oh God," even if they say they don't believe in God. Some will. Some won't. But those that truly believe in God and have been denying God, and I'm not trying to sound like this is a religion, they will instinctually snap back and go, "Oh God." And what we should always do is be in a state of gratitude for the things that we have, and be in a state of prayer, not just for ourselves, but for others. We should send love. See, a lot of people just say love your enemies, like some sort of a cliche saying, but they're not actually doing it. Or people don't really take that as far as it could really go. Just like a lot of the New Age is that, well, that's negative. Well, don't you think you're being negative by labeling it negative? Well, I never really thought about that. Yes, I wouldn't expect someone of the West, I'm sorry, but the East is much more balanced with spiritual concepts. I wouldn't expect the average person from the West to truly understand a circular concept that goes beyond good or bad. So, again, the Western linear mind of trajectory has infected spiritual understandings in the New Age community. That's why you have people like Alfred Weber, and I listened to one of his lectures this morning and what he's saying. And he is describing the Trump election, first of all, as a positive thing and a dent in the establishment, but they take it to a point of portals opening, just like they were saying in the 1980s, and the earth ascending. Not just the humans, but the earth physically ascending. What I can say is I am not 100% debunking the idea of something massive changing. In fact, I'd like to see that happen. And there is a sense of things speeding up if we look at the path of human civilization and the creation of certain things. And I like to look at the 70s. I daydream a lot about these solar epochs affecting human trends and this cycle of knowledge coming forward every 10 years. with these solar maximums. And not only that, through the act of sex and increased sexuality, through the increased desire for sexuality, which comes from the increase in the geomagnetic storms, whether you're actually able to go there in your mind or not, it's all about energy. I would just let go of dogma about everything being separated and see what I'm trying to show you. And if you can see what I'm trying to show you, you can really go beyond a lot of this counterfeit spiritual nonsense. These solar cycles are helping us evolve. That's why they chemtrail. That's why we have these false flag events and staged wars. Because there is something that is worthy of conversation with the ascension crowd. But we need to focus on what's going on with the sun and not just jump over to someone's theory about a 26,000 year cycle in galactic center. Let's focus on the foundation. Let's build the house first and then deal with the cabinets. And what I see people doing is avoiding this understanding of we're going through these epochs that are more measured by every 11 years or 10 years, and there's a positive direction we can take our society in these epochs. If we're focused and if we understand what's going on, not babbling in Babylon over on the planet Jupiter, looking over there, doing some sort of or in some weird astral room over there where we're literally thinking that we're learning something, and all we really are just running on a treadmill with some Archon feeding off the energy that we're oh yeah, just keep running. Yeah, you're in a classroom. Yeah, you're like, are you really in the classroom, or are you running around the halls doing a slip and slide, thinking that you're learning how to fly? Yeah, man, you learn how to fly. Are you really learning how to fly? Are you really in the classroom? Hello, McFly. Are you actually on the spiritual path? Are you evolving? You ask yourself, am I evolving? You take a deep breath, you meditate, quiet your thoughts, you listen for an answer. As you do this and as you ground, as you meditate and as you breathe, tap into that inner gnosis. Again, letting go of all these things and contaminations and images, clearing out your mind. Various visualizations you can learn. You can take a rose. You create a rose right in front of you. Take a rose with your hand, your etheric one, put inside your head, large, blooming rose, to where it's clearing out all different areas, even things you don't even know that are there. And then you throw it out in front of you, and you, hypothetically, put an explosive device in the astral plane underneath it, blow it up, and it goes back into nothingness. Repeat, and all throughout the body. You can learn Vipassana. You can learn how to tap into your breathing and become equanimous. Not obsessed with desire and not obsessed with aversion. And both of those vibrations, including guilt. That's why they want to keep people in a state of white guilt instead of actually looking at the root causal factors. That's another conversation, but this is where it goes spiritually. You keep someone in those states of desire, guilt, fear, their auric field develops warps in its appearance and in its shape. And the auric field needs to be strong to protect you from the influence of the archons, to protect your energy from being siphoned or taken from you. Other entities courting with you. So states of mind are very important. And maybe now you're starting to understand why the internet isn't really down, and why, instead of them censoring people or murdering everyone that speaks the truth, instead they'll put out propaganda that if you speak the truth, they'll come kill you. And they'll add 100 more conspiracy theorists and supposed channelers that are completely like going off in some other direction. Is there any government intelligence connection between the Ashtar movement, by the way? And yeah, and the government. Just a little bit of a, because we had the 1977 broadcast that was jammed in the UK, where Villion, spokesman for the Ashtar, jammed the broadcast in 77. Was that some sort of a European intelligence move? Just like the Orson Welles broadcast, which William Cooper said was a test to see how people would react. Again, we're dealing with Project Bluebeam material. Fake alien invasion. Also fake alien saviors. Fake alien invasion. Fake alien saviors. Turn of Jesus. Holograms. The return. Fake alien saviorship. Fake alien invasion. But the real archonic influence being unseen, but using physical imagery in the material world where they are stuck. That's what I think is going on here. I think you are dealing with things that people think are UFOs. I think you have a clear interface between the government and the Archons that is not in the way that people think. That is in such a subtle way that you have people that are working with the Archons that don't know that they're working with the Archons and may laugh at the idea of Archons themselves. They may find themselves in certain positions of power. They may find themselves brought up to a certain position of financial wealth. They may have thoughts that are not their own. They may think they are operating on behalf of their own agenda or their own party. They may have no idea that they are a part of a stage-managed Third World War. Now, when I look at it from a larger picture perspective, I see the Archons using human hosts that got to know what they're involved in. But because of the reality of mind control, I cannot guarantee that every puppet is fully aware of what awaits them or what they're involved in. Do I know that Trump knows what he's involved in? Even though I feel I can clearly see in the big picture what he's being used for. Does Trump, does Clinton, does Obama, do any of them? Did Bush? Now Bush is doing paintings of soldiers that died. And people are going, well, gee, I wonder if he has a heart. It could be possible that the dude's not necessarily fully waking up, but he's doing something politically correct that would be remembered. I mean, you're not going to see the dude paint any pictures of the Afghan people. Maybe this is just some patriotic, mind control. But I don't know that I noticed this on the mainstream news. Then again, maybe it's fake. But I think I saw an article showing George Bush doing portraits of American soldiers that died during his war. And he's like painting one after the other after the other. I don't know what's going on there. He's like, okay, this is politically correct. I can't talk about what really happened, but I'm just going to like paint a bunch of... So on a level, these guys know what they're doing is wrong. On another level, they don't know what they're doing is wrong when they're doing it. And you might hear them talk about how they're talking to God or hearing voices. Same thing with Bundy. And I believe that whole thing was a setup. But did he know it was a setup? Maybe. Maybe not. So I'll be honest and say certain things I don't know. But I'll tell you what, human beings can be easily controlled. That is the type of world that we're in. And the greater conversation that is bigger than ascension is how do we stop from this continuing to come back here over and over and over and over and over again? How do we attain our true spiritual sovereignty? How do we overcome the mind control that is subtle, that a lot of men and women don't understand or realize? That if you be bold with the truth, that mighty forces will come to your aid. I think that there has been a fair amount of blackmail, threatening, other forms of programming that's happened to certain people in the astral realms or the dream realms, to where, they're seeing certain people as saviors, the external saviorship theology. It's going to help bring balance to this world. There's also fear there. There's also superstition there, programming there. It's not just don't focus on the negative. I mean, you take that on a much deeper level. What's actually going on? And so when someone breaks free from the matrix, they stop listening to those threats in the physical world, in the etheric astral world as well. But they're going to be punished and put on the cross, raped or something else, if they actually go into full true light activation. Full true light activation will actually recognize what's going on in the Middle East. Full light activation will actually be able to have a normal conversation at a normal tone without actually breaking into tears. Because you actually understand that those beings aren't dead. Their souls are somewhere. And it is obvious that it is possible. Some actions of those souls in the past led to where they ended up. But we still discuss and have compassion for them, because to use the spiritual truth that our karma follows us as a reason to not speak for others is a misuse of spiritual teachings and is a dabbling in magic. Oh, you're going to just kind of think your way out of this, out of the responsibility of the humans today through their own actions to help the world ascend. You're going to think your way out of this, and you're going to blame their karma, and you're not going to see your own according to this world. You know, I've already taken a lot of crap from the Archons as it is, so now that I live off grid and I live in nature, it's gloves off time. It's gloves off time. And I am going to believe that I will be protected from sabotage in my personal life. There's certain fears. There's certain things that I've identified within myself, and it doesn't mean it's all gone. It doesn't mean that I've removed every fear from me. I, in fact, recognize that I am living in a day and age, in a system, in a matrix that is designed to personally threaten me in this incarnation. And I've talked about being born half Afghani and half white, and the pain that I've gone through my life being different and how I felt. And now there's fear of the future with a database and knowing that they could attack people based on their politics or their name. And so, as far as I'm concerned, this is like a modern version of Lord of the Rings. This isn't me hallucinating. This is real. I mean, people could be targeted for being innocent and not even being activists because of some other karma or whatever else. So if this isn't a time to really get right with God, you know, as we approach the next cycle of things, I don't know what is. As far as I'm concerned, I feel I got confirmation from the Creator and my angels that I was on the right path, especially this last decade. I consider it divine intervention that I found a county that I can live in freedom, to where for a few $1,000s I can get the down payment and I can bring in a shed. I can live off grid in that shed in a day and age where a lot of people think it's illegal to live off grid everywhere. For whatever reason, after the work that I've done, I am now given this bit of space. I talk about this because I believe the intervention took place because of the good work that I've done. And that's why I have been relocated strategically, cosmically, with non-human forces behind the scenes, making sure that certain things worked out. I believe angels exist. I'm very different, obviously, from the they're going to kill us all crowd. In fact, I think the Archons have been harvesting a large human population for a long time, and they in fact like to keep that population booming, and they like to shave off certain ethnic lines, and in doing so, they are entrapping the souls of today's day and age back into this loop for future Matrix timelines. Those people that have mass murdered, those people that have loved those mass murders, are also tied karmically. So there's the karmic potential of the physical world with regards to World War III and the potential of Americans having certain things happen to them, including rape and being sold, especially the females that have abandoned their sacred masculine feminine side and have embraced the darkness. They are at risk. I want to help at-risk women gain back their soul as well as men that are able to find this podcast, and they will find it by accident, and my viewers will never be high, and my views are not because of the suppression taking place, I believe, on YouTube. Well, they make stars out of those that are promoting fake disinformation in the New Age community as well as the conspiracy arena. But it doesn't matter because there will be interventions. There are synchronicities. There are synchronicities, folks, that take place. Sometimes it's the work of the Archons, and sometimes it's a real synchronicity that is something of the true light. But I will say that synchronicities can work through the Archons. So certain things can seem like they were meant to be because other forces are trying to make it appear that way. Keep in mind, despite all of the rhetoric that you're a goddess and that you're already enlightened and you're it, baby, you are it. It is all about that golden worship it. Worship that ass. The reality is we very, very much are connected to some weird computer, as well as we've been brought up to a certain level, but there is like some primitive genetics within humanity that most are immediately activated sexually or in a violent way by literally a pressing of the button. And so we are living in that type of a soul physical prison to where most of the human beings are on remote control. Sexually, violently, they literally, they push buttons and they are directing seas of humans. And for whatever reason, aspects of the Guardians of the Earth, I believe in a soul group family, have found themselves here to do some great work that will actually catapult them to a greater state of being other than a guardian of the earth. I've told myself I never want to come back down to this earth unless I'm in a major archetypal or angelic in particular state of being to where I can help out behind the scenes. And the fact of the matter is, I think those things are taking place right now by other beings. And those are beings that choose to remain in the shadows, if you will, because they aren't there to present themselves as humans' saviors. And this is something that you see in the book of the Nagamati, to where, like a scene out of Lord of the Rings, an angel that sits with the true supreme creator comes down to protect the female from the demiurge, and the demiurge move in to rape her and attack her. And she calls out to the heavens. And we see Lord of the Rings, and one of the last one, the divine feminine. I believe that was archetypal, or that was metaphoric of the feminine raising the sword against the dragon. Not that dragon or serpent is entirely evil. It's not. But what it represented in the movie, it was this dark, wicked, archonic, shape-shifting Sauron consciousness, very like the demiurge, and the woman was standing against it. I think that there's been a lot of concerted effort to keep the women asleep because of how powerful they actually are. I think there's also a lot of concerted effort to attack us in our sleep, and those hours between 2, 3, 4 are actually very powerful hours to wake and meditate and do some self-healing and do some self-work. Maybe listening to some, music. I just got some noise-canceling headphones, and I'm starting to listen to music and meditate and do some of that work in those witching hours, and I'm starting to see a different effect. It's a different effect meditating during the middle of the night. And now I'm starting to see when the veil is thinner, and also certain periods of the year, the solar flares, as well as the solar flares, geomagnetic storms during the witching hours. Those are major hours for major things going back and forth, for the opening up of portals and doorways and the veil thinning. And the idea is to redirect this to where it serves the Most High, to where it does the most good, and to where it's not easily siphoned. A lot of people get excited when they have some of their initial psychic experiences and they're taken out of the body, and they're told go to Portland. Yes, go to Portland and have your energy harvested. I actually met someone who had that happen and met others. And so, like with relationships, dreams can be invaded to give you the less than positive advice to move to a certain area, because something wants certain humans to live in certain areas. And when you have enough humans together, it's actually magnifying all the energy. And if the humans don't need the energy, that energy can be used and siphoned. Why let it just go off into nowhere if that energy can be redirected for other purposes? Especially if most of those people are living in misery because they're worried about paying their rent. That's emitting a certain frequency that the Archons are using to control the world. So like a hamster, they give that hamster just enough food to remain in the city. And they keep that hamster afraid of life outside the city. Why have to have all the money to live off the grid? And they literally are siphoning that energy of fear of not having. So I'm not aware of all the reasons why I've been trying to go off grid for multiple years, and my prayers were answered as of this year. But I can see how aspects of my soul and my voice and my power are coming back into my body now that I am actually doing some real serious soul healing and heart healing of the physical and the etheric, healing all kinds of damage, from a world where I've been out there on video taking on this and getting the energy backlash. When a man lives in a world where he's engaged in spiritual war and there aren't people in his physical life to physically love him or family, he must achieve a sense of self-mastery or face self-destruction. There is no other way. There is no other way. You either go all the way and take this stuff very seriously and realize that we are living out our own Frankenstein, our actions do matter, and we have to participate moment to moment in an individual shift in consciousness and pull back from the lies and distortions. If our consciousness is insusceptible to identify it, and like that 12-year-old Alex Ansary that made a mini comic book strip where the insusceptible was a superhero because he literally had the power of the mind to protect himself. This 36-year-old Alex Ansary, today on November 20th, 2016, hereby kicks off the official Guardians of the Earth sermons outside the box of traditional religion and New Age teachings, in the tradition of many others that have come before me. If this new series and sermon is something that you want to help me support to show that this can be done independently, there is a link over at alexansary.tv, and I'm going to add other potential options later. I think this is going to be a regular thing. And honestly, I think that discussing what is happening spiritually is very important to not become the abyss. Others have come before us and have demonstrated you can be taken over by the archonic influence if all you are doing is highlighting a 5 cents conspiracy and doing nothing to show people or even entertain a conversation about the root causal factors as to how we got here. When you start becoming, of course, we think about the likes of Alex Jones and others that have been influenced to supporting government again, illusions of separation, looking at all immigrants in the same light with suspicion, we see how technology and propaganda can lead some people to believe in the unbelievable once the intuition has its kneecap shot off with a double gauge shotgun. The problem is you got to go to the hospital and go through a long period of healing if your kneecaps or any part of your body is shot with a shotgun. The good news is, if you restore your walk to a mindful walk, you can regain and activate your intuition and use your powers of creativity for good. And these sermons, these podcasts, will continue to dance around some of these ideas. I'm Alex Ansary at 8 o'clock in the morning as the sun is now coming up off the grid in beautiful southwest Colorado, in the middle of nowhere, as some people say, yet speaking to people everywhere on the planet. November 20th, 2016. Thank you for listening.